Hi, my name is CTrietsch, and the purpose of this video is how to measure bridge saddle compensation for your ukulele, guitar, or bass. The first question is, what is compensation? And compensation is added length to either the nut or the bridge saddle to your scale length so that when you fret a note, it will be in tune. We're specifically addressing bridge saddle compensation for this video. And factors that affect compensation include the scale length, which is the length of the string from the nut to the bridge saddle, as well as the string material, which could be fluorocarbon or nylon or some type of metal. The string gauge, which is the thickness of the string, is important. So the treble side of the instrument will have thinner strings generally than the bass side of the instrument, which has thicker strings. That means you may have to compensate each string differently. The tension also might be different across each string, or from one string set to another string set, the tension and gauge changes. So you have to change the compensation depending on what gauge or tension strings that you're using. Also keep in mind the intonation of the instrument. If you're tuning it to standard tuning compared to maybe an alternate tuning, because if you lower the pitch of the string, then the tension lowers. Even though the same string has the same gauge, you may have to compensate it differently because the tension might be higher or lower depending on your tuning. So keep that in mind when you're compensating an instrument. So the big question is, why do we need to compensate an instrument? Let me explain with this fingerboard here. Well, imagine that there's a string tied between my fingertips, right? So the string looks something like this over the board. When you play this instrument, you press the string down to the fingerboard. You're stretching the string. So now the string looks like this: is angled down and angled back up. That distance is longer than the straight string, and the string being stretched, the tension is higher than the straight string, right? And we said before that two factors that affect compensation, or in this case intonation, are string length and string tension. Right? So generally what happens is you'll tune the instrument and the open strings, the first, second, third fret will be in tune. Those notes are in tune. As you work your way up here around the 12th fret and higher, these notes will be sharp. So what we do is we add some length called compensation at the bridge saddle so that these notes are in tune, and these notes, it won't affect as much because we have already tuned these notes and they're in tune. Okay, so that's what compensation does. It allows us to be more in tune all the way up the fingerboard. So the method for measuring compensation goes something like this. You're going to get a good tuner that gives you an accurate and sensitive reading. And you're going to tune the open string. So let's say the string is G. Next, you're going to play the harmonic at the 12th fret. So that's when you just touch the string lightly, you pluck the string, and you release your finger. And it makes a pitch that's one octave higher than the open string. So this is a high G now, right? The tuner reading for that G, let's say, I don't know off the top of my head what that would be, but let's say it's 120 hertz, right? You're going to compare that to when you fret at the 12th fret. So now I'm going to fret the string at the 12th fret and make sure you're using good technique, which would be, lightly pressing the string down, just enough tension so that you get it, not pressing too hard, not stretching the string up too much. Make sure your finger's almost up against the back of that fret. Okay, that ideally is your normal technique, but you want to use good technique when you're doing this so you get an accurate reading. You're going to press the string down and you're going to compare the tuner reading compared to the harmonic. So let's say when you fret at the 12th fret, the tuner says 122.4 hertz. So that means when you fret at the 12th fret, your G is 2.4 hertz sharp. So how we adjust this is now we go to the bridge saddle and we move it a little bit longer. Maybe go 1/16 of an inch or 32nd of an inch. It's small increments. Usually 30 seconds of an inch is how far back I go at a time, right? Now you're going to make sure that that open string is in tune, so you may have to tune it again. You're going to play the harmonic, check the reading of the tuner, and then play the 12th fret and check it again. Now you have to do this for all the strings, mind you. Okay? Here's the confusing part. If you fret it and it's sharp, the note is sharp, you have to go longer because longer is lower. If you fret it and that note is flat compared to the harmonic, you have to go sharper, right? So shorter is sharper. If you have to go lower or flatter, you got to go longer. If you have to make the fretted note sharper, you have to go shorter. That's the most confusing part right there. So the tricky thing is that the compensation that you need might affect where you put the bridge on your instrument, and your bridge placement might affect how you've braced the soundboard, right? So you need to know those measurements before you even start building the instrument, and that's tricky to do because you don't have the instrument to measure off of, right? So I have a little jig that I'm going to show you now that I use. I set up the exact strings at the exact scale length. I can measure the intonation before I build the instrument. That way I take those measurements to my soundboard and I brace the soundboard appropriately to support the bridge placement on the outside that is going to allow for an in-tune playing experience all the way up the fingerboard and a good build. So let me show you what that looks like now. Here are two compensation measuring sticks that I made. Let me show you what they look like. So here I have a tuning machine installed on the top of this board. You see I had to cut the thickness of the wood a little bit. I made a nut. Just be careful, make sure that your string is actually breaking over the nut and is not floating over the nut like this. You want it breaking over the nut like it would on your instrument. Okay. I put this is double sticked, just a fingerboard cutoff with the line there. That makes it really easy for me to see where it's supposed to be. This is measured from the nut to here. That should be half of your scale length. That's where the 12th fret goes, okay? An important thing to note is look at the string height here. That string height should be exactly what you would set up your instrument at. So let's say that's, 2/32 or something. That's how you need to set this up. That way, imagine if it was up here and then you're measuring with this tool, you're gonna get an inaccurate reading because you have to stretch the string that much in order to get it down to the fingerboard, which is not realistic. So you need to set it up realistically at whatever string height. Okay, so that's why I have other wood underneath here to build up the height. Down here, this is my bridge, and you can see my bridge saddle is just a nail. I secured the ball end just as like a string through the end of the stick here, rounded over the end of the bridge just so that the string, is smooth and I can still use it later. Okay, and then you see down here, I actually have two lines in there. That's where the nail should be. That is my scale length, which is 20 1/8 inch for this instrument. Okay, so what I do, I'm going to put a small nail in here to act as a fret. Okay, we tune this string up. Let's get the nail in there. Okay, tune the string. It's in tune. Play the 12th fret harmonic. Check what the tuner says. Fret the 12th fret. Let's say it's sharp. I'm going to slide the nail back and I'm going to do it again. Tune it. Harmonic. Fretted note. Slide it back, slide it forward until you get that right pitch. And now I can measure from here to here and see how much compensation that I need. Or I could just measure from my line over here to here and see maybe it's 1/32 or 3/32 that I need to add compensation in there. Okay, this was another one that I built for a tenor and baritone ukulele. You see I set up 4 tuning machines so I could have all 4 strings on at once. Just look at how they're attached back there. I had to thin out the board a little bit, just cut it off. I made a nut. Okay, and again, you have to build up this height so that it's at the proper string action. This, I used a piece of fingerboard that I put a fret in. Really easy to use. Look, it goes down the line. You line up on the line. This was the 17-inch scale length. This was the 20 1/8 inch scale length for the baritone. Okay, down on the other end, this was where the 17-inch ended. This is where the 20 1/8 inch ended. And you could see those lines. That's how much compensation that I needed, for whatever string set that I was using. This I just had, done like a tie bar. Basically, there's a hole that goes through and use the end of this plywood as a tie bar. So if you measure your compensation needed before you build the instrument, again, now you know where to put your bridge. Now you know how to intonate your saddle so that your instrument is in tune as you play up all the way up the fingerboard, and your player will have a much better playing experience with your instrument. Good luck.